If you think you've heard everything about Yu Menglong's mysterious fall, think again. Because today, you're about to hear what no one else has dared to say, the shocking testimony of the only witness who saw what really happened at that glamorous rooftop party, just hours before the tragedy that ended Yu Menglong's life. This isn't speculation, this isn't gossip, this is the Waiter's statement, and it changes everything. Stay tuned till the very end, because what he revealed will completely alter the way you see that night. The night of Yu Menglong's fall had been painted as a mix of glitz, champagne, and celebration, a private event hosted in a high-rise penthouse above Shanghai's glittering skyline. Celebrities, producers, and industry insiders had gathered to celebrate the wrap-up of a new film. Cameras weren't allowed. The atmosphere was supposed to be light, but as we now know, it would end in silence and police sirens echoing across the city streets below. At 11:47 p.m., Yu Menglong, the actor who had stolen hearts in romantic dramas, fell from the terrace. For weeks, the public has been left in confusion. Was it an accident? A struggle? Or something much darker? And then, weeks later, one statement changed everything. A waiter who had worked the entire event finally broke his silence. His identity remains hidden for safety reasons, but his words were recorded by investigators, and part of his testimony leaked into the media. And what he described that night was something no one saw coming. The waiter began his story in trembling tones. He said, "It wasn't an ordinary party. From the moment I entered, there was tension in the air. People were smiling for the cameras, but behind those smiles, something felt off." According to him, Yu Menglong had arrived late, dressed sharply in a black suit, his hair slightly disheveled as if he had come straight from a heated argument. His assistant was nowhere to be seen. He walked in quietly, greeted a few familiar faces, and went straight to the bar asking for whiskey, neat. He didn't even glance at the crowd, the waiter said. He looked distracted. Like he was forcing himself to be there. But that wasn't the strangest part. At around 10:30 p.m., the waiter claimed he overheard a tense conversation near the back of the terrace. Yu Menglong was speaking with a woman whose face was partially hidden under a silk shawl. Her voice was low, trembling, but filled with anger. The waiter didn't catch everything, but he heard Yu Menglong say one chilling sentence that still echoes in his mind. "If this goes public, you'll destroy more than just my name." The woman's response was sharp. "You made your choice, Menglong. You can't blame me for the truth." The waiter didn't think much of it at first, celebrities argue all the time. But then, a champagne glass shattered nearby, and the woman stormed off, vanishing into the crowd. Yu stood there, motionless, staring down at the shards of glass as if they were pieces of his own life. Moments later, the atmosphere shifted again. Music played louder, a cover band performing a jazz version of an old pop song. The laughter returned, but Yu Menglong was gone from the main hall. A few guests noticed, but assumed he had gone to make a call or get some air. The waiter continued doing his rounds until he was called to bring a new bottle of wine to the rooftop terrace, where only a handful of guests were allowed. When he opened the glass door, cold night air hit him, and he saw Yu Menglong standing near the railing, talking to a man in a white blazer. The waiter couldn't see the man's face clearly, it was dimly lit, shadows hiding his features, but he described his voice as calm, almost too calm. "You think you can walk away from this," the man said. "I already did," Yu replied. The waiter placed the bottle on the nearby table, pretending not to listen. He began to walk away, but then he heard something that made him stop. "If you tell anyone, we both go down," the man said quietly. That was the last clear sentence before the wind drowned everything else. Then, a loud thud, not of a fall, but of something metallic hitting the railing. The waiter turned sharply, but by the time he looked back, Yu Menglong was leaning forward, his hands gripping the edge, his face pale. The man in the white blazer stepped back. And then, silence. The waiter's heart pounded. He wanted to run over, but his instincts told him not to draw attention. Instead, he went back inside to alert a colleague. But before he could, music inside the hall abruptly stopped. A piercing scream shattered the noise. One of the guests had seen something from the window. Yu Menglong had fallen. The waiter's voice reportedly broke as he described what happened next. Security rushed upstairs, chaos erupted, and someone, possibly the same man in the white blazer, slipped away through the emergency stairwell before the police arrived. Surveillance cameras, conveniently, had a malfunction during that time frame. When authorities questioned the guests, everyone gave vague statements. No one seemed to have noticed any argument, any struggle, any raised voices. It was as if the entire room had collectively agreed to silence. But the waiter's statement didn't match the official reports. He described seeing a scuffle, brief, intense, and carefully concealed from the party's main view. He said he saw Yu's wrist being grabbed just moments before the fall, and that the man's expression wasn't panic, it was fury. The waiter ended his account with a chilling remark. He didn't jump. He fell after someone let go. Now, here's where things get even more suspicious. The waiter was reportedly offered a large sum of money to stay quiet. But after weeks of nightmares and guilt, he came forward. His confession was leaked anonymously to a small online forum before it reached investigators. And once it hit the public, everything changed. Netizens began dissecting photos from that night, blurry shots of guests entering and leaving. In one image, there is a man in a white blazer, walking out at exactly 11:45 p.m. He was never identified in the initial police report. Some claim he was a producer connected to Yu Menglong's next big project, a project that, according to insiders, had major conflicts over casting and financial deals. Others whisper it was someone from Yu's personal life, someone who had a reason to keep their connection a secret. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. A week after the waiter's statement leaked, his social media accounts disappeared. His number was disconnected. No one has heard from him since. That silence, once again, left the public with a haunting question: was this all a coincidence, or part of something larger? Investigators revisited the scene months later after public outcry. They re-examined the terrace railing, the fingerprints, the missing footage. A report surfaced briefly online claiming that new prints were found near the railing, ones that didn't belong to Yu Menglong. The report vanished just hours later. But insiders who claimed to have seen it said the prints matched a known industry figure. No names were released. Meanwhile, fans of Yu Menglong refused to let the case die down. They started online campaigns demanding the truth, trending hashtags like #JusticeForMenglong and #WhatHappenedThatNight. Videos flooded social media, slow-motion analyses, leaked clips, even AI reconstructions of the scene. But none of them compared to the raw power of the waiter's words. Because only someone who stood there that night, who felt the wind, heard the voices, saw the struggle, could describe it so vividly. And that's what makes this so haunting. The waiter didn't sound like someone seeking fame or money. He sounded terrified. He said, "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see him looking over that edge." Let's take a moment to imagine that scene again. The city lights below. The hum of music muffled through glass. A man in white, a man in black. A brief exchange that no one was supposed to hear. And then, the silence of a soul disappearing into the night. When the news broke that Yu Menglong had fallen accidentally, fans were confused. He wasn't known for risky behavior. He wasn't intoxicated. His friends said he had plans the next day, meetings, scripts, even dinner reservations. So how could someone so full of life just fall? The waiter's testimony gave the first glimpse of what might have really happened, that it wasn't just fate, or bad luck, or imbalance. It was confrontation, power, and betrayal all wrapped into one tragic night. And the scariest part? The people responsible might still be out there, silent, protected by status and money. Before he vanished, the waiter left one final note in a message that circulated online for just a few hours. It read, "If you want to find the truth, don't look at who fell. Look at who stayed silent." That single sentence shook everyone. Because if you think about it, it suggests that more than one person knew what happened. That there were witnesses, maybe even accomplices, who chose silence over justice. And that silence is what's keeping Yu Menglong's case in the shadows. So, what really happened on that rooftop? Was it an accident caused by a heated argument? Was Yu Menglong pushed by someone desperate to protect their secret? Or did he choose that moment as a way to escape something even worse? No one knows for sure. But as long as the waiter's story remains the only piece of truth we have, one thing is certain: there's more to this tragedy than the world has been told. And maybe, just maybe, one day the truth will break through the silence. What if the waiter who witnessed Yu Menglong's fatal night party didn't tell us everything? What if the first statement we heard was just the beginning, and the truth he finally revealed later was even darker, more disturbing, and completely different from what the public was led to believe? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you're going to hear the expanded version of that night, the version investigators tried to bury, and the one that might finally explain why Yu Menglong's death still haunts millions. The waiter's first statement shocked everyone, but what came later, after he went missing for weeks, was far more chilling. When he resurfaced anonymously through an encrypted message, he said something that made journalists' blood run cold. There was a third person on that rooftop. This one sentence flipped everything upside down. In his follow-up confession, he described that as he served wine near the terrace earlier that night, he noticed a second figure hiding behind the glass divider, quietly listening in on Yu Menglong's argument with the man in the white blazer. He hadn't mentioned it before because, in his own words, "I didn't want to believe what I saw." He said this figure was wearing a long black coat, not a waiter's uniform, not a guest's party wear. Someone who shouldn't have been there. And here's where the scene gets absolutely spine-tingling. The waiter said he was about to leave the terrace when he heard something that made him freeze. Yu Menglong had turned away from the man in the white blazer, heading toward the railing, clearly upset. The man followed, still speaking in that controlled, calm tone. But then, out of nowhere, a faint metallic click echoed through the wind like a camera shutter or a recording device being switched off. That's when Yu turned sharply and shouted, "So you were recording me?" The man in the white blazer snapped back. "You forced my hand, Menglong. You left me no choice." The waiter said Yu's expression turned from anger to pure disbelief, not fear, but betrayal. He whispered something under his breath, something the waiter couldn't hear, and then turned as if to leave. But at that exact moment, the man in the black coat stepped out from the shadows. "I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me," the waiter said in his second statement. But he was real. He grabbed Yu Menglong's wrist and whispered something in his ear. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Yu's whole body freeze. Like he'd just heard something that broke him completely. That was the last calm moment before everything unraveled. The waiter described it as if time slowed down. The wind grew stronger. Music from below blurred into chaos. The man in the white blazer moved closer, gesturing angrily. Yu Menglong tried to step back, but his heel brushed the metal frame of the railing. The man in the black coat said something again, and this time, Yu's voice cracked in fury. "You can't destroy me like this." And then, the sound of a struggle. Glasses clinked. The railing shook. Someone gasped. The waiter swore he heard Yu shout one final word. "Stop." Then came the sound no one will ever forget, the heavy, echoing thud that ended it all. The next few minutes were chaos. People screamed. The music stopped. Security rushed in, but the two men, the one in the white blazer and the man in the black coat, had vanished. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. The waiter claimed that when police arrived, they asked specific questions that made him suspect they already knew about the second man. He said one officer whispered to another, "Check if the footage was deleted again." Again. Meaning this wasn't the first time security footage from that building had gone missing. So the question is, who had the power to wipe out evidence before investigators could even see it? After that night, the waiter disappeared. But his voice returned through leaked audio files shared by someone claiming to be his friend. The audio is grainy, distorted, but in it, you can hear the panic in his tone. "They told me to stay quiet. They said what I saw wasn't real. But I know what I saw. There were 3 of them up there, Yu Menglong, the man in white, and the one in black. And only one of them fell." He went on to describe something truly terrifying. He said after the fall, when everyone was rushing around, a woman approached him quietly and pressed an envelope into his hand. Inside was a single photo, a blurry image of Yu Menglong smiling at the same party, moments before everything went wrong. But on the back, there were 4 words written in red ink. "Don't forget the third." The waiter destroyed the photo days later, terrified. But he couldn't forget that message or that night. Let's talk about what that could mean. Don't forget the third. Was the black-coated figure someone close to you? A friend? A rival? A handler? Or maybe someone powerful enough to ensure his silence even in death? Some fans online believe this mysterious figure was connected to an influential investor who had a lot to lose if certain secrets were exposed. Others think the man might have been part of Yu Menglong's inner circle, someone he trusted deeply. But one thing stands out: Yu's final expression, as described by the waiter, wasn't one of fear, it was recognition. As if the last face he saw before he fell was someone he knew. The waiter's testimony didn't just reopen wounds, it reopened the entire case. New investigators began questioning how so much evidence could vanish, how no one saw two men leaving the terrace, and why so many people from that party suddenly fled abroad. And while the authorities maintained that Yu Menglong's death was a tragic accident, the public wasn't buying it anymore. Because the waiter's description, the tension, the whispers, the missing footage, and the mysterious third man pointed to something far more sinister than a fall. It pointed to a cover-up. Now think about this for a moment. If the waiter really risked everything to share this story, why would he lie? What would he gain from disappearing, from living in fear? The only thing that makes sense is that he told the truth. A truth that someone desperately wanted to erase. Even today, years later, fans still gather online to share fragments of his leaked statement, piecing together every clue like detectives. They slow down the old party clips, analyze the shadows in the background, and search for that black silhouette the waiter described. And every time, one question keeps resurfacing. Was Yu Menglong's fall really an accident, or was it a carefully staged silencing? If you're still watching this, I know one thing: you feel it too. Something about that night doesn't add up. Too many coincidences. Too many missing pieces. And maybe one day, the full truth will come out when someone else as brave as that waiter decides to finally speak. But until then, all we have are the fragments. The whispers. The shattered glass. And the memory of Yu Menglong's final night. If you were completely hooked by this story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel for more shocking celebrity mysteries just like this one. Now tell me in the comments, do you believe there really was a third person on that rooftop? Why do you think the waiter was silenced after his confession? And most importantly, who do you think the man in the black coat was? Drop your thoughts below, I'll be reading your comments to uncover the truth together.